Hi, this is Harriet Grayson, your host and producer of Community Culture Showcase. So we're now into the fall, and I want to let everybody know that there's lots and lots of wonderful activities all over the towns around here. And also that if there are some groups out there that need a little extra oomph, little support going into the fall, because everybody's looking for a little extra cash for all those nonprofits and community groups out there, let me know. Contact me here at the station at graysonharriet@gmail.com, or just give a call over to SEC TV. I completely understand we are a nonprofit and we're also begging for money, and we're going to have a great art show at the end of the year. We want everybody to come by. Our two Frankies provide the most delicious food, wonderful vino, and an opportunity to see local artists. So come on by in December. Stay tuned and we'll give you more information, or you can always contact the studio to find out. We're also looking for visual artists who want to participate in our art show. So again, contact me or contact the station, and we'd love to hear from you. Today I have with me two guests from an organization that does such a good job trying to help seniors and the disabled. And it's just not a popular issue anymore, but I'm close to that senior age. I'm thankfully not yet disabled, and I know what a wonderful job they've been doing. And I've been involved with them for several years, and they do most of their work simply with volunteers, people who are willing to give up their time and their energy to help seniors and the disabled. So I'm so glad to have the Tanners with me today. I've got Lindsay and Deb. So hi. Deb, tell us a little bit more detail what you got going.
Hi, well, we're glad to be here. We've got a number of issues going on right now in terms of trying to help our seniors. It is, like you said, the fall. In the fall and the winters in Rhode Island, we have a number of people who travel south, so we don't have as many volunteers. But then for the seniors who cannot travel south, they're still at home and they're still struggling to access healthcare providers, grocery stores, the food pantry, things that help them to remain independent, age in place, and do so in a healthy way. So we're looking for volunteers. We have a recruitment going on right now for volunteers to help with that. We've got a couple of activities coming up. We have a volunteer recognition coming up soon on Saturday, October 20th, to say thank you to the volunteers who give so much of themselves and their time and energy, and even their money. Many of our donors are also, our volunteers are donors as well. We also have coming up in March of next year what is our major fundraiser to help support our food delivery program for our seniors. So we've just begun working on that as well.
That's great. That is going to be at the Old Mountain Bowling Alley up there in Wakefield, Rhode Island. It's not that far. People even from Groton can get in the car and go out there and help seniors. Lindsay, tell us a little bit about how you got involved. I should say this is a mother and daughter duo here. So Lindsay, tell us a little bit how you got involved with the organization and helping out. I'm sure you started out as a volunteer, got recruited by your mother.
Actually, I didn't. Starting out had nothing to do with her. When I first started with the organization, I used to go to the South Kingstown Senior Center and pack the Meals on Wheels coolers with my grandmother, her mother-in-law. And they used to come in really big totes, and we would have to individually pack them. And I used to do that every morning with her. And then Mom became the executive director, and then a little bit further down the line, they asked me if I wanted a job. So here I am.
That's it. So what do you do with the volunteers specifically? What do you do with them?
All kinds of things. We have opportunities in-house, taking people to the doctor and to the grocery stores, delivering Meals on Wheels, visiting people in their homes for companionship. And then we work with about 56, 57 other nonprofits all over Washington County. So places like South County Museum, South County Habitat for Humanity, libraries, some of the nursing homes, Johnny Cake Center of Peacedale and of Westerly. So really anything you're looking for, we have something that fills your need.
That's great. So now if people are interested in being volunteers, they should go to your website. Is that the best way to get it? To connect with people?
Yeah,
Okay.
the easiest way for a potential volunteer to sign up is to go to the website, fill out the application process, because all volunteers are vetted. There is a criminal history background check done, to do your due diligence to protect the
Sure.
vulnerable people that are receiving services. So the website is the best way to just get started and fill out the paperwork, or they can look online at places like volunteermatch.com. Indeed, there are different opportunities that we post there, or Lindsay posts there. And then they could give the office a call and speak with anyone in the office. Besides,
So give us what's the website?
the website is www.southernrivol.org.
Okay, Southern, SOUTHERNVOL.
Yeah, it's southernrivol.org.
.org. And the phone number?
401-552-7661.
Wonderful, wonderful. And tell me, Deb, how did you get started doing this kind of work?
Okay, now you got me dating myself.
Listen, darling, we're going to be needing the services that we're talking
Very
about.
soon, I know, very soon. So I started with Southern Rhode Island Volunteers back in October of 2000, so I am in a anniversary period right now. I started on October 1st. They were looking for a new executive director, and at the time, I was the development director for a local CAP agency, and a person with the organization, it was then called Seniors Helping Others, came to me and asked me to come. They had interviewed a number of people. I went, I interviewed. It was a little daunting. I interviewed with 5 or 6 people, and then, got a call right away and went to work and have been there ever since.
The rest is history.
The
right?
rest is history. When I started, it was a very small organization. There were 2 computers. One was a Macintosh and one was a regular PC. They did entirely different things. There was no email. There was no online presence. There was, a small office. And with the help of many dedicated volunteers over the years and wonderful staff members and interns from the University of Rhode Island, and now my own daughter, we've built the organization, and we have 614-ish volunteers. Lindsay's the one who now knows the exact numbers.
Right. She keeps track, right.
And those individuals are creating positive change and impact for people in need every day, whether it be the seniors who are receiving the food or transportation to appointments, or kids going to local historical museums. We have some families that we deliver food to from local food pantries, where the parent has young children, but the parent has some major health challenges to deal with. So it's really a community asset, and the goal is to provide meaningful service for people so that you feel something good about what you're doing while you're helping someone else in need.
Yes, so my husband Arthur, as you know, does lots and lots of this transportation, taking seniors everywhere, hospitals, clinics, doctor's offices. His last volunteer trip, they also went to McDonald's. So yes, he's willing to take them with a certain trip in mind. Then we take little side excursions because these poor people can't get out.
Right.
They don't drive.
Right.
Sometimes it's a health issue that they cannot drive, they can't see, they can't hear. In some cases, they have no money, and it's expensive to maintain a car.
Right, and it can be temporary, or it can be that they're dealing with something chronic. And I work part-time, so I get to volunteer too, which is something that I'm really enjoying. I just had the privilege of taking a woman grocery shopping to run a couple of her errands. Her husband recently had surgery. He's the person who drove. She doesn't drive, has no license. So now, if somebody's not helping them, they're completely cut off. They have no access to the grocery store, to the pharmacy, to their doctors, to even the post office to pick up their mail. during his recovery period.
Sure, sure.
They have no family or friends in the area, and it's rural. You can look at the demographic numbers and how many people are there and call it suburban, but if there's no buses, if there's no public transportation, and the only option is taxi companies, and not to disparage them, but in many cases the folks we're talking about cannot afford that. Sure. Then you are isolated and cut off from society.
Right.
Unless someone steps in and helps you out.
Yes, it's true. Now, if people are watching this and they need services, how do they contact you?
The easiest way for a senior to contact us is by telephone.
Okay.
I think because I know me aging, I'm in my early 60s now, and for me, I like to pick up the telephone, make a phone call, and have a voice answer the phone.
Right.
I'm not someone who wants to send an email and wait for the email response. I'd like to talk to someone and have my questions answered a little bit quicker than that.
Okay.
So the easiest way is by phone.
Tell us
the
again
phone number is 401-552-7661.
Okay, very good.
Or you can, if you are tech savvy, if you do enjoy the internet, you can go to the website. There's directions on the website how to email the organization. The email is right there, the address, how to contact us.
And
so
again,
all you have to do is
email. The website
is www.southernrival.org, and that's SOUTHERNRIV like in Victor, OL.org.
Very good, very good, wonderful. And you can be a volunteer. You can be as old as you want to be, but how young do you? What's the minimum age?
Volunteers can be 13 years of age and older.
Okay.
There are limited opportunities for youth, but youth can have community requirements for school and various clubs that they're a part of. So there are a few things that we can do for our younger people who are interested in volunteering. So if you're between 13 and 17, you're not considered an adult just yet. There are limited opportunities, but there are some.
Yes.
And then if you're 18 or older, any of the opportunities are open to you.
Right.
And we do have, on occasion, opportunities like we've worked with groups from the University of Rhode Island where there's a larger number of people, or a couple of different businesses from time to time, like Blue Cross. One time we did a big project, an outdoor project at one of the local senior centers, and they sent down, I think it was 30 people, and
nice.
So it took what would have been a week's worth of work,
sure,
and condensed that down to one day, which was really tremendous.
No, that's great. That's great. So, Lindsay, what kind of volunteer work did you like the most? What got you really hooked onto doing this? I mean, there must be some more than others, yeah?
I think it's more, not so much the opportunities, but just ever since I was a little kid, it was always instilled in me that volunteering is part of being an American. It's part of who you are, who you should be. You should be taking care of your neighbors and your older family members. So it should be a part of who you are.
That's great. That's a great message you learned from your family. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I know our family has a long tradition. You learn it from your parents, your grandparents, about volunteering for all kinds of, and what we should say is that if the opportunities go well beyond simply the transportation and the Meals on Wheels. Your connection with a bunch of nonprofits in Rhode Island lends itself to maybe people who are not interested in delivering food for the elderly.
Correct.
But might be, as you were mentioning, museums, other kinds of
animal care, the environment, health, education. There's a whole host of things. It really is about the volunteer and that person's goals in terms of making a difference in the community they live in. If you're not happy doing your community work, then you're not going to continue. And our goal is to provide the opportunity and a connection and a support network for that person who wants to give of themselves. And you can give, as little as an hour or two a month, or you know, to a couple hours a week to, you know, we in the past have had a couple of volunteers who worked almost 40 hours a week. To me, that's a job.
Yes,
you know.
yes, yes.
But there are other people who volunteer once or twice a year.
Right.
It really depends on an individual's desires for their goals for volunteering, their time and availability, their skills, and then what the needs are. And we help to match those things and put them together so that there is something that
There's
comes,
something for everybody.
right.
Yes.
And it's like, and you know, for our family, it is kind of the family business. It's, you know, I've had other jobs, and we do have other interests and stuff too. But, you know, when I was a kid growing up, my parents were volunteers from the time I was like a toddler. You know, my dad was a scout leader, and then my dad and mom and some of their friends got together and created the Charlestown Ambulance Corps. There was none. We had neighbors who passed away because the ambulances had to come from too far, and my father just thought that shouldn't be, you know, so they got together, and my dad's been passed a number of years now, but, you know, and probably hardly anybody remembers that he had anything to do with it. But there's an ambulance corps in that town. There's paramedics on duty. People's lives are saved every day by some wonderful people that work there now. So that impact, like, impacted thousands
Sure.
who will never know who my father was.
Yeah, the
That's
legacy,
not the
yes.
important thing. The
No.
important thing is
That it's
something
done.
really good happened, and it's done. And you know, it's a good thing.
I know that they're I guess it's the Wesley Sun for those few people who actually still read a newspaper. There is some stuff in there about your organization with the volunteer opportunities. When does that issue come out? Do you know? Is it every week, a day a week? Is it on Sunday, Saturday, Monday? Do you know?
It depends on the space that the paper has,
Oh,
but the
okay.
paper is very generous and gives us space to talk about what the local opportunities are, so that people can glance at them and read them, and maybe they're not ready to move on that just yet, but they've got it in front of them, they've got something tangible they can look at and say, I'm interested in that. Maybe place it down and make a call the next day, or, you know, a week from then.
Right.
It's there.
And
it's,
there are
that's very
bunches
generous
of,
of
yeah,
the
and there's
paper.
bunches of opportunities. There's not one or two. There's
No.
well, usually maybe a good dozen of them with what the requirements are, who the organization is.
Yep.
And that's a very important thing that you do as an organization. I mean, you're taking, did you say, over 600 volunteers?
Yes.
And trying to manage them and to find opportunities for them that not only are they going to be good at, but they're going to enjoy,
Right.
so that you keep the whole volunteer message with them, so they just continue. And when they're having a good time doing this stuff, they tell friends and other family members.
They're nurtured and supported, and that's what's important, because without those volunteers, the critical changes and resources that are necessary to make those changes wouldn't be there. There's not a single town government that can afford to do all those things for all the people. Nobody, I mean, I own a home, you own a home, your taxes would be outrageous. You wouldn't be able to live in your home. You cannot afford to employ the workforce you need to address all the community needs that we face. So volunteers are absolutely a critical resource. They're a necessity for us in order to be able to do things that make our communities better places to live. And they deserve to be respected and honored for their commitment and
Yes.
the hours that they give.
Yes.
You know, they're not getting compensated for that.
No.
Their compensation comes in the way of feeling good about what they
Right.
did, knowing that they've had an impact on another person's
people.
life. You know, it's like, it's an intangible reward that's amazing, you know?
And for young people, even kids into certainly the late teens and 20s, it's also an opportunity to learn something that you might apply
Right.
to a profession or another job. I mean, you learn all kinds of important things that could be useful in terms of trying to find a job in the future.
And civic engagement and volunteerism looks really good on a resume. If you're applying for a job and everybody's academically or skill-based equal, but you're the person who also volunteered, gave back to the community, showed leadership, you probably go to the top of the pile.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's good for your career goals as
Yes.
well.
So you can have even a little self-interest,
Sure.
and it can manifest itself in a positive way by being a
Correct.
volunteer.
Right.
That's wonderful. Now, I know every organization like yours, all these nonprofits, are scrambling for bucks. I mean, it's, and Deb knows that I have no shame. I beg for money for your organization from complete strangers. It's just because I know what a good job you do.
Yeah.
I know that most of the money is not going to staff. It's almost, it's almost entirely volunteer run.
Right.
So that every single dime makes a difference.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about the kind of fundraising activities coming up again.
Well, the bulk of what I do is write grants and look for dollars that will support the services for people from foundations, and we've been fortunate to have some good support in that way. But then we also we do appeals like any organization, where we'll mail you a letter, and the one thing I would ask of people is don't just throw it away. Look at it. We may not be the cause that you want to support. That's okay. But be educated, learn about what we're doing, and be an informed donor. And if what we do speaks to your heart, then thank you. We appreciate your support. The other things that we have going on is we do have a cash raffle going on right now to support our food delivery services for our seniors. That you can get information at the website on. You can also call the office and get information. There'll be information coming out on our Facebook page. The drawing is going to be November 21st, just in time for those folks who might be interested in holiday shopping, should they be the winner.
And all we can say about the amount is it's a good size amount. You could do an awful lot of Christmas shopping with that money. And we're not going to be selling a lot of raffle tickets, so that makes the possibility of being successful a lot higher.
Right.
And it's for an awfully good cause. And we're trying to get you at your greediest point so that you give money because you expect a big reward. And that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. So the amount that you would give is relatively small compared to everything going on.
Right.
And the rewards are very good. Not only is there a cash reward, there's this reward in your heart in terms of doing a good deed for your fellow citizens in your own community. Yep. So I'm asking everybody out there, go ahead there, call that number, get onto that website, and give some money to make that possible. Tell us again what the website and the telephone number is.
The website is www.southernrival.org, and the phone number is 401-552-7661. And
the important part about your organization, which I emphasize every time I try to get people interested in giving money or time, is that there's so many things that you can do. So although the emphasis on the organization has always been on seniors and the disabled, in fact, if you're interested in other kinds of stuff, like you were talking with saving animals or some other kind of, there's dozens and dozens of nonprofits who need volunteers. And so instead of you trying to spend a lot of time finding the right mix, all you have to do is contact you guys directly.
Correct.
And they'll tell you if there's the opportunity. You fill out the forms. I guess you have to get fingerprinted to make sure that...
They don't have to be fingerprinted, but they do have to submit to a criminal history background check, which is conducted by the Attorney General's office. So it's not us looking at that or looking at their information. But we do also investigate sexual predators registries and other things to make sure there's no violent crime history, there's no abuse history against other people.
Or animals.
Yeah, I mean, and that doesn't mean, like, if someone has a traffic ticket or something like that, or you stole a candy bar when you were 18, that doesn't preclude you from volunteering.
Right.
It's not, we're not looking to preclude people. We're just looking to make sure that we ensure safety for the seniors who are getting services, for all of the clients of the other organizations where the volunteers are, because at those places there are children. So we're talking about vulnerable elders and children.
Right.
And then also our volunteers. It's like, we have a wonderful reputation for helping people who know us, know what we do. And we have a duty to make sure that those volunteers are seen as the upstanding, wonderful helpers that they are.
And I know you, to recognize the volunteers, you're going to have is it a luncheon?
It's it's not really lunch so much as it's refreshments.
Okay.
And some activities and stuff on October 20th, and our volunteers are being personally invited. And they, I think, will have an enjoyable Saturday afternoon. And it's, they don't look for recognition,
Right.
any of them. But they deserve recognition. They deserve to be thanked.
Sure.
So this is our humble little way of saying thank you. But we don't spend, tons of money and bring in a big band and a big dinner, and because that would not be being good stewards of the donated money.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
we have certain grants that fund this event. So that we can say thank you to the volunteers.
That's wonderful. Give us also a little indication about some of the other activities that you do in conjunction with other community groups. So I know that I've been a volunteer at Washington County Fair, in the past the Seafood Festival in Charlestown. So tell us a little bit about your engagement with other organizations in the community.
Okay. One of the biggest one is the Washington County Fair. We provide volunteers to help out in the Pomona Kitchen, which is, Washington County Fair is really Rhode Island State Fair. I mean, it's huge. Tens of thousands of people visit. It's a wonderful family event. There's so much going on, so much activity, some great food, and we're there to help them deliver the food to the patrons who are coming to the fair. But they also help us. The Pomona Grange provides a substantial grant for us to then deliver food to those in need.
Right.
So it's a true partnership, and we've been there since, I think it was 2002 now. And it's at the point now where we have this whole list of people each year that they're waiting to get their shift. So we have a waiting list to be able to go there, because the Pomona Grange people are so generous that our volunteers get a ticket to the fair for free that day, and they feed them too.
Yes.
So their commitment to our organization is amazing. And then the Seafood Festival, that's a partnership with the Charlestown Chamber of Commerce, which is a wonderful chamber that promotes business for that area, but also tourism for that area. And Charlestown's just a gorgeous little town. And
that's in Ninigret Park.
That happens in Ninigret Park I'm not a huge seafood eater, but it's like, if you love seafood, that's the place to go.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't, I have found food there that I will eat.
Yes. They have hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff like that.
And again, it's a wonderful community event that you can take your family to and enjoy 1, 2, or 3 of the days at the fair. We also have helped out with the Balloon Festival for the Wakefield Rotary in the past. And something I think a lot of people don't know is that the Wakefield Rotary, that Balloon Festival, they raise money to help with local nonprofits and the needs of the community. And we work with a lot of Rotaries. We've helped out at golf things for the Charelstown Rotary and stuff. And Rotarians, they believe in community.
That's right.
And service.
Exactly.
So it's a natural fit for us.
Right.
Any organization like that that's interested in making a difference in their community, if you need volunteers. And our newest partnership is with Lisa Iwan, who is a local attorney and adoption RI, they started this event called Duffel Bag Bash, which happens in the summertime. We provide some volunteers to help with that event, and they provide a small cash stipend to our organization. But that event raises money for children who are in foster care, and also receives donations of a small suitcase or duffel bag, because a lot of kids in foster care, especially the teenagers, when they move them each day, sometimes all they have to put their clothing and stuff in is a trash bag. And Lise just was really saddened by that a few years ago and said, this is something I need to do. So we know her, so we partnered with them to support this. So it's like anything like that. That's community helping community.
Right, exactly. Fed by the fact that you have all these volunteers ready and willing and able to do this kind of stuff. Yes, definitely.
And I think what works for the volunteers is that they don't have to be sitting on call. These are wonderful people who want to give back. So we share the information with them, and then when there's things that they want to be involved in, they contact us. Lindsay makes the arrangements, and they're at those events, and then they're helping, they're making a difference, but they're also enjoying whatever that event might be as well.
Absolutely. As you know, Art and I have participated at the Washington County Fair and the Seafood Festival for a number of years, and it just makes you feel good. And it's something that in our very kind of selfish world, it's really important that parents show their kids and their grandkids what it is to give back to the community. Because a community can only be whole, and it can only be responsive, and it can only be involved if in fact you have lots of people who are willing to be volunteers, who want to see their community, even Washington County itself, just prosper. We don't like to see homeless people. No. We don't want to see kids who have had just a tough life. We want to be able to make a difference in life.
It's your home.
Yes,
it's
definitely.
your home. It's where you live. It's where you're raising your children. It's where you're aging. It's where you're working. Do you want it to be a good and wonderful and supportive place, or do you not care? The choice is yours to make.
Absolutely.
You can engage, and you can make it the best place ever, or you can choose to put blinders on, and then for some people it's like, people say, well, I don't have time. Yeah, right now. Everybody has those periods. So it's like, it's not that everybody has to volunteer all the time.
Right.
You have young children, this might not be the right time for you, but there'll be an opportunity in the future.
Sure, absolutely.
Or maybe you want to do something with your young children now, so this is the moment in time for you. It's not that it has to happen all the time. Volunteering is very flexible, and it really is all about choices, and it really is all about an individual finding something that has meaning for their life.
Yes.
And that may sound selfish, but it's really not.
No,
because they ultimately are giving to others and stuff. So, but we have control over our communities.
Right.
If we choose to exercise it.
And there's this wonderful religious adage that says one person can save the world, and that's what it takes. It takes one more person to volunteer to do some wonderful kind of thing for the community. So my husband Art does all this driving, taking people around, and he has, from just listening to these people, has learned a huge amount of personal history and community history about people who many times these people have lived in these communities all their lives. They've raised their children, sometimes their grandchildren are around, and you get this whole sense of history, much better than reading a book. You go and you listen and you get a whole oral history from people. Some of them turn out to have famous things happen to them. It's small enough a community where you can take someone for a ride and they have a great story to actually share.
And it might be that, their grandmother owned the little country store, or maybe they were related to Lizzie Borden, which was the case with one of our volunteers years ago. Or, you're driving a World War II veteran to a medical appointment and they're sharing with you their history. And in the case of one of our volunteers, when you say that, people always think about the male veteran, and nothing to take away from them. But we had a volunteer who was a female World War II veteran, and she wasn't a nurse. She was an aviation mechanic.
Right.
Like, who would expect that? So it's like, and that's the thing. It's like the history, the information, the sharing of life stories is just amazing.
Yeah, it makes the senior or the disabled person feel better. And it actually enriches the life of the volunteer. Art has just wonderful, interesting stories from taking these people. Then after a while, if you've done it like he has for years, you know these seniors. I mean, they know you, and so you continue to engage with them about their lives. The other thing that's kind of a sad, important aspect of that is for some of these people, they have no one else to talk to. I mean, not face to face with another human being.
Right.
So it's actually much more important than you would even think about just getting them to the hospital or the doctor or to the pharmacy. It's about talking with them. And the other important thing is if you see them over time, you can see whether they're getting better or worse, and you can, chit-chat with them about other things that they might or should maybe do. And it's interesting, I think, that what's happened in Rhode Island is a lot of people have left the state.
Right.
So many of these people in their 80s and 90s in some cases, they have either their offspring have died or in fact have left the community, and we migrate all over the country, all over the world. So these people are pretty much left on their own.
Right.
And some of them live in supportive housing all over the South County. And so they don't have any extra resources to take them places. And so having a volunteer come and sharing with them those kinds of moments, it makes everybody leaves that with feeling good.
Right. And that's especially true, I think, with our food delivery program. A lot of those people, they're getting the food delivered because they're homebound. They physically can't lift the bags or get to the food pantry, the grocery store, or they need Meals on Wheels. So it's a safety check for them because they're alone, and they could be someone disabled in a power chair. They might be just a 90-year-old. They might be a 60-year-old with a chronic ailment, and they can't stand at the counter and prepare food.
Right.
You don't know what the individual's circumstance is, but they're homebound. They're stuck. They're almost prisoners in their own home, and so that face might be the only one they see all day. So that comment or that little conversation is their human interaction for the day. You're doing a safety check for them, and that is, tremendously valuable for each of those individuals. And, food, we forget sometimes that, people say, oh, they got the food at the food pantry, or you can go to the grocery store, or there's Meals on Wheels. Well, all that's great. But if you don't put the food in the hand of the person who needs it,
right.
What good is the food?
Exactly.
It needs to get into the hand of the person who needs it.
Absolutely. And economically, for the state itself, or any state, it's so much better to support something like Meals on Wheels than it is that these people might land up in a nursing home.
Independence is important to support because it is less costly for the individual, for their family, and for the tax base.
Absolutely.
Institutionalized care has a high ticket price, just because of the nature of, you have to have the staff, you have to have the building, you have to have, and it costs insurance a lot of money, or then if people aren't insured, it's just a more costly way to have to live.
Absolutely. And if we can make these kinds of things happen, I mean, the volunteers are delivering the food, but you got to pay for the food. I mean, these things are not free. I mean, I'm sure you get them at a discount from the government, but still, you got to pay for it, even if you have an army of volunteers delivering it.
Right.
And I know, so my mother, she passed 4 years ago. She died at 99. before we actually unfortunately had to put her in a nursing home, part of the reason we had to was because she needed to have someone give her some food, ask her if she had taken, drank a glass of water, had she taken her pills, all of that kind of stuff. That is when you start to get into your late 80s and 90s. I mean, that's all the important stuff you might forget, or you just don't have the energy to cook for yourself.
Right.
So making sure that people get something in their stomachs, making sure they have water, something simple as that. Because I know when the volunteers come, they ask, well, let me get you a glass of water, or do you want something else to drink with the food? And with my mother, they used to ask her, did you take your pills today? You need help, opening the bottles or anything. So they become this really. My mother actually, at the end, did not get. We paid for the help, and it wasn't good, and she landed up being in a nursing home.
Right.
But that when they get, and even when you're not. I mean, my mother wasn't in particularly bad health, but you get to a certain point in life, in your late 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that you just don't have enough energy, you don't feed yourself. So these are all important things, and the ability to provide those meals, to provide that human interaction with people, there's no price tag that can actually...
Those are our goals, is to provide human interaction, companionship, to alleviate the isolation, to provide access to nutritionally based food, and to healthcare providers. Beyond that, if someone needs nursing care, help with medications, personal bathing and stuff, there are companies that provide those kinds of services, and we might be the eyes that see that for someone, and then we would give them, all the local company information, or refer them to a social services network. For that type of more advanced care, then we don't have skilled medical people that we're working with. We're volunteers and doing a volunteer job. And then beyond that, like you say, when your mom got to a point where she needed more supervision and care, that's when it's time for a more advanced nursing home type care, is when someone has to be watching all the time. Is she eating? Is she okay? What's happening? And our goal is just to make that be the last thing they have to do.
Right.
So in your 60s, 70s, 80s, when you're healthy enough, you can stay at home. You can age in place. That's the goal. That we all want to do that. I don't want to go into an institution where they decide for me what time I get to eat. Right. What time I have to go to bed.
Yes.
When I get to have my shower.
Yes.
I'd like to be able to make those choices for myself, and I can do that in my own home with other support networking services, whether it be through Southern Rhode Island Volunteers and, our volunteers, or more advanced nursing care when it comes to that point. It really drove it home for me when my mom was sick and was living with us. She died in my home. And for some people, I know that would be difficult to take. For me,
comforting.
It's comforting.
Yes.
I thank God that we were all there with her when she passed, and that we were able to allow her to live out the final stage of her life, surrounded by family, in the comfort of a home that was a family home, that she didn't have to be institutionalized.
Right.
Nothing is wrong with a nursing home when that's something that's necessary.
Sure.
But if it's not.
Right. And if we can prolong that moment with things like Meals on Wheels, which people who don't receive it or are not involved with it have no idea about its importance. I mean, it's when, not to inject too much politics, but when our current president came to office, the first thing he said, he was going to cut Meals on Wheels. I mean, that's the epitome of heartlessness. I mean, and then again, it comes to the fact that people do not have a good grasp of the importance of providing this service.
Food insecurity is a tremendous concern for many, many people. Homelessness is a concern for many people. Those are realities of what we live with. And if we can do something about it, we should. Those of us who have closets full of clothing so that we're warm in the winter, that have roofs over our heads so that we're dry when it rains, that have food on our table so that our bellies aren't hungry. You know, those are unbelievable gifts. And we need to recognize that those are gifts, that there's no law that says you're entitled, you get to have this. These other folks over here don't. If you have a heart, you can't help but be touched and bothered when you see a child without adequate food, an elderly man walking the street because he's got no home.
Right, right.
Someone walking in the winter
Without gloves, or boots. Yes, yes.
You know, you wouldn't want to live like that. Why do they have to? You know,
and it's having all these great volunteers that try and do as much as possible in sometimes what feels like a pretty heartless world that we live in. And so you want people to kind of dig into their hearts and try and find some time to volunteer. There's always some organization out there that will we could find a place for you.
Right.
And the other thing is to reach into your pockets
and help. Yes.
And help by giving some money. And I think that
we live in the cup is half full world. And it's a good place to be.
So why don't you tell us again about the important fundraisers that you have coming up, because as much as, and this is an organization of 600 volunteers, very, very little paid staff. I mean, we're talking about minimal kinds of paid.
One full-time person, 2 part-time people.
And you're serving thousands of people in South County. So
12 of Rhode Island's 39 towns. That's a third of the state of Rhode Island.
And it's rural, it's hard to get to. There aren't roads there. There aren't supermarkets on the corner. There aren't doctors anywhere to be found.
Well, there are roads. We're not that bad. There's not sidewalks, though.
No sidewalks. You can't walk. That's right. You can't walk.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so we have the cash raffle coming up. And to get information on that, people do need to either call the office at 401-552-7661 or visit the website, www.southernrivol.org. And there'll be information there that directs them how to get involved. There are 3 prizes. Hopefully someone will get a wonderful Christmas gift or a holiday gift or just a gift just for being loved by someone.
Right, exactly.
And the drawing will be November 21st, and all the proceeds from that will go to support the food delivery program, because we don't have a specific grant that covers that entire program. We have some smaller grants that give a little bit of money toward that.
Right.
So we're earmarking this particular event to support that. And then coming up March 31st, 2019 is our Bowled Over for Southern Rhode Island volunteers, and it is our Edna Bernier Memorial. Edna was a volunteer with our organization who worked in our food delivery program. She was well into her 90s. I won't reveal her age. And she raised hundreds of dollars for the food service program at the bowling event each and every year. And not only that, she bowled and she always had the top score.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So when you go online, you'll be directed as to how you can make a donation, right? You can make that donation online?
Yes. When you look at the website, there is a button on there for how to donate, so that it will take them to a secure site. We use Network for Good, which is processed through, I believe, GuideStar, which is nationally known,
well-established organization.
So being a small nonprofit, if we were to try and set up a PayPal or do something smaller like that ourselves, we really don't have the IT expertise to ensure security and safety. So that's why we use a nationally known organization, so that people can feel secure about making online donations. And then there will be instructions on the cash raffle if you wanted to make a ticket purchase using that, how you could go about that, okay, using that methodology, as opposed to contacting the office.
Right. And if you contact the office, you can make the donation, or you can buy the raffle ticket right from the office.
Right. And
if you know anybody who's a volunteer for Southern Rhode Island Volunteers, some of us are running around with tickets in our pockets.
Yes.
And we're always happy to sell you a ticket that'll buy you a wonderful Christmas holiday season. Everybody will be happy with the prizes.
If you win.
If you win.
But it is limited ticket sales. So
that's really important, because that makes your odds go up higher and higher.
Yes.
So definitely. And the raffle price is very reasonable, and the winning is much better than reasonable. So it's a win-win. And more importantly, it's a good thing for the community. You don't think of yourself as a volunteer quite, but you can think of yourself as a donor. And all of our communities need a lot more donors. And of course, we know that people who are struggling the most turn out to be the most charitable givers per capita than the richest people. So people who themselves have experienced struggling are more likely to give.
You can empathize with someone if you've had challenges and struggles in your life, and if you are someone who can't volunteer, and you see different things on the television from time to time and they tug at your heartstrings, but you just cannot volunteer because you don't have a minute in the day, you can make a donation. And what people don't understand is even small donations add up in a big way when you are making donations to small, on the ground, nonprofits that are there on Main Street making a difference day to day in our communities. Little nonprofits that are in the community have direct access to having an impact on someone's life, in a very meaningful way.
Sure.
And they depend on the donor.
Sure.
Because they're not big nationally known names. We can't compete with big national organizations that have, huge marketing budgets. We don't have.
We are the marketing budget.
We are the marketing budget, right. It's our time, it's our volunteerism, it's our stewardship and sharing the story and sharing the people's stories to the degree we can. And, that's what's important about letting people know this is making a difference. And we're not trying to be vague and avoid things. If we tell you about someone we helped and we won't give you a name, we won't give you an address, they have the right to privacy.
Yes, of course.
We can share a circumstance and explain to you how what we did, what action we took made a difference and made it a little bit better. And at all of our nonprofit partners, we're making a difference in people's lives that could substantially change how their future looks. For us, that's through our volunteer program, resources program, and through our disaster preparedness volunteers who staff shelters in the area during times of weather crisis is what we've dealt with.
Right, exactly.
And then for the seniors, it's like we may not be having an impact on what their future 10 years from now is going to look like, but we are having a dramatic impact on what the end season of their life is. And I don't know, for me, turning 60 a year or so ago was like, wow.
Yeah.
You get to that point in life and things start changing and you start thinking about things, and I am in the end season of life. I'm hoping it's going to be a long one, but nobody knows if they have the gift of longevity.
Yes.
So I just like it to be calm, peaceful, and to have my basic needs met.
All right, so one more time, the website, tell us the website.
www.southernrivol.org.
Okay, and give us the phone number again.
401 552-7661.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let me tell you a few things that Harriet Grayson is doing in the community. As some of you might know, under the pen name of Anastasia Goodman, I'm out there writing mystery novels to keep you up at night. And my latest one, The Terrorist, is now available. And I am going to appear on October 10th, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, at the Savoy Bookstore on Canal Street in downtown Westerly, Rhode Island. It is a beautiful store. It's part of the great renovations and the new stuff that's in downtown Westerly. If you haven't been there, you got to go. Lovely venues to eat and to drink and have a good time. They're even opening up a comedy show place. So you got to come down to Westerly and see what's out there. And also, please come on down October 10th, 7 o'clock at the Savoy Books Shop, it's called, and Cafe. Now, the other things that I'm doing to try to promote and to help authors all over our community is I have these literary salons, and I've gotten some great support from Colin Bennett from the Malted Barley, who allows me to use his private room upstairs on the fourth Tuesday of the month. And we call it Books and Brews. He's got great craft beer and wonderful pretzels. But more important than that, he's allowed us to have an upstairs room where we can have a showcase for our literary people. Our next show at the Malted Barley will be about the slave catcher. We have this wonderful writer coming who will dress in 19th century gear, and he will talk about the people who did the slave catching. So the slaves that escaped, what they did about catching those slaves. It's going to be a marvelous evening. That's the fourth Tuesday in October at the Malted Barley. And then in the first and third Wednesdays, with the help of the Tapped Apple, which is a place right there in town that makes cider and wine, we're going to have we call wine and words, or words and wine. You know, I get confused after a while. But you come on down and you'll have a wonderful opportunity to sip apple wine and great hard cider and hear some local writers reading their stuff and discussing their books. It's wonderful. Westerly, Rhode Island has become the hotbed of civilization. I'm telling you, we have art, we have music, we have theater soon. So come on down and join me. And you can always get in touch with me at GraysonHarriet@gmail. If you're a writer, if you're a poet, and you would like to have a place to show people what you have written, please contact me or contact the studio. This is Harriet Grayson, the host and producer of Community Showcase. I'm so glad that you joined us. And by all means, give a great shout out and help the Southern Rhode Island Volunteers. Thank you, and you'll see more of me if you come on down to Westerly.